Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Can you tell, I have some questions. Can you tell me the populations of the 4 precincts? Do you know that?
Off the top of my head, no, I don't, Judge.
Mr. Merritt, do you know that?
No, sir, I don't.
Okay.
My apologies.
Can anybody explain why one precinct has 101 locations and not another one even has in the 90s?
Again, that goes back to 2019 when we were doing the polling locations and we went to the countywide polling. A lot of those polling locations were based on precinct-based voting because those were in the precincts at the time. I believe at the time that precinct 1 may have had more voting precincts due to the population density, and therefore there were more locations. The agreement, my understanding, back in 2019 when we switched was we were not going to reduce the number of locations until we had sufficient time to achieve more data, go back and reevaluate, and potentially would look at reducing the number of locations. Then recent legislation has removed the ability to go below 50% of the voting precincts, which caps us at 347 locations is the minimum that we're allowed to have.
Right.
2019, I believe we had in the neighborhood of 334. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but we've had to increase as the number of precincts have increased and to meet that number of locations. Again, I am very aware that we have a lot of locations that are close to each other. I'm also aware that there are locations that a mile down the road, there'll be an hour wait, and this other location, there is no wait. In order to help with that, that is why we've been pushing to get the wait time so voters can be aware of when and where there are waits to help push out and spread the population amongst the polling locations.
So I heard all of that. Can anyone explain why the precinct breakdown is 101, 87, 82, and 80? Can you explain that?
Those are the locations I had available in order to meet the minimum number of locations.
So are you telling me there were locations in precincts 2, 3, or 4 that you would have chosen instead of the ones you chose in 1 to get to the number of 347?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, so you said those are the ones available. I took that to mean that they weren't available in other precincts, that you tried and couldn't get them, so you had to go with 101 in one precinct to get us to 347.
Yes, Judge, I went so far as to visit every commissioner in order to try to get locations in their respective areas because of that number that we were hurting.
So is that how we do it? Whichever commissioner provides the most, that's how we decide where we're going to go vote?
Due to the meeting the minimum number, in order to meet the law, unfortunately, beggars can't be choosers. And without available locations, I have to meet that number. Now, if there are other locations that would like to be locations, I would love to have had them reach out to us and so we could look and evaluate. But the pool that we have available to us is very, very limited.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the court? We have a person.
Yes. The question we have to ask ourselves is, why are we trying to reduce voting? What is the benefit to reducing access for voters? I'm against any subtle attempt of suppressing voting. These efforts to reduce polling places they're unnecessary, and an attempt to gerrymander the vote. I don't know what this discussion is about. It should be about access, not cutting polling places.
Is it gerrymandering to have in one precinct 101 voting locations and in another 82? Is that gerrymandering?
I listened to his explanation, and it makes sense to me. Now, he has been in his position about a year. I would like to give him an opportunity to assess things and and fix them if necessary.
And I would like to see equal representation on election day in our precincts.
So perhaps we should all have 101 polling places.
Or perhaps we should all have 84. I mean, we can go back and forth all day long on this, but having one that has 21 more than another, your own, and 19 more than another, if you're concerned about voter suppression, having 101 in one area and 82 in another, are you not concerned that that's voter suppression?
I am not.
Why not?
I'm not.
Can you tell us why that's not voter suppression?
I am. So I have how many?
You have 80?
80. I am aware of each of my polling places. They are positioned where the community wants them. They are positioned where city leaders in my precinct want them. If there were a problem, I would hear it from elected officials, which I have heard, and I would hear it from the public. And so if they wanted more, I would add more.
All right. Any other comments from the court before we bring our speaker up?
I would point out perhaps two things. The first being that at no time during my 34 years of service to Tarrant County have I ever been a part of a majority on this court. So the fact that Precinct 1 has more voting places than any other precinct is a function of the majority vote of this court, which at no time has included more than 2 Democrats. Most of the time it was only 1 Democrat. So there must be other reasons other than party affiliation for why there are 101 or whatever number you said voting places in Precinct 1. The other point that I would just like to lift up is that the Republican Party is now on record as not wanting to facilitate the voting by college students, and that is an abomination.
And if that's what was being said or argued, I would agree with you, but it isn't.
That is exactly what was said.
No, that's not what was said at all, but we can agree to disagree or just disagree. All right, we do have a speaker. The only thing they filled out was Eliz. Is there somebody here named Eliz?
I'm speaking to the next item. Item 3.
Voter pay?
Yes.
Okay, my apologies. Couldn't quite tell from the
Miller.
form.
I'm sorry, I can't write decently.
That's okay. Are you a doctor? All right, then we have no more speakers. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All right, please cast your votes. All right, it passes. The election day passes 3-1. Thank you.
All right, and the last item that we have is a request for the Commissioners Court to approve a raise